If you are pregnant or you've recently had a baby, this podcast is for you. I am your host, Kath Bequee, a physiotherapist working in women's health and mum of three. Inside my online program, Fitness Mama, I just love helping support women to care for their bodies during pregnancy, prepare their bodies for birth, and support their after-birth recovery, helping them feel confident and strong inside out during this important stage of their lives. In this podcast, join me each week as we dive into all things pregnancy care, childbirth, and postnatal recovery, helping you through every step of the journey. It is absolutely possible to feel amazing and confident in our bodies during this motherhood journey, and I want that for you. Come and say hi to me on Instagram at @fitnessmama, and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast. Today, I chat with Alana, who is a naturopath, nutritionist, and podcast host and mother. So Alana helps women to get back to their feel-good weight. So we talk about weight loss in this episode. We talk about nutrition, postnatal depletion. We talk about how to lose weight sensibly or the right way after birth. And I was a little bit hesitant. You'll notice out of nearly 200 episodes, I've never done one on weight loss because to me, and I talk about this with Alana, but it's not a focus of my programs, like of the app. It's not, weight loss with exercise isn't something we focus on at all. We're more discussing, and the women that join Fitness Mama are all about wanting to regain their strength and feel good in their bodies and have that, like, feel confident and strong. So when I thought about this topic, I did so because although my program is all about strength and wellness and fitness and feeling strong and confident, I do know a lot of mums do worry about their weight after birth and they are wanting to lose weight. And again, I talk about this, I'm repeating myself a little bit because with Alana, we talk about the fact that this is a little bit of a taboo subject. So this podcast, there's no shame, there's no blame. It's all coming from a place of support and helping us feel good. And that's what it all comes down to. It's not helping to get to a particular weight on the scales. It's helping us to feel good in where we're at. So Alana has a wealth of knowledge. She's got some great information to share, and I trust you're going to love this episode. If you have been enjoying this episode, I invite you to give us a rating and review. It's one of the best ways you could support this podcast because ratings and reviews helps this podcast to get heard by other mums who might also find it helpful. So just on Apple Podcasts, just find this podcast that you're listening to, scroll all the way to the bottom of the episodes, and from there you can give it a rating and a quick review. And if you'd like to leave your Instagram handle, I'd be very happy to give you a shout out too. So thanks again, everyone, for listening. Let's get straight into this episode with Alana. Alana, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. We teed up via good old Instagram, so many amazing connections made via Instagram, but it's great to have you on to chat all things nutrition after birth, losing weight and that feel-good weight range. And we're going to discuss how to lose weight sensibly or the right way after birth. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And it is really nice to be able to meet people, who are doing the same thing in the online space as well. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great. So you're a nutritionist. Tell us a little bit about what led you to this area.
Yeah, well, I'm a nutritionist. I am actually a qualified naturopath as well, but I live in Germany and it's very different here, how to use herbal medicine. There's a lot of rules here. So I've gone into the nutrition space a lot more. And yeah, I guess it's through motherhood yourself. When you go through that, you experience such massive changes. And as a qualified professional going into motherhood, you have a different approach to it. And I realized myself how difficult it was and how many different moving parts there was: prenatal, postnatal, oh my gosh, and then even feeding kids. That's a whole nother topic in itself. It kind of all comes together. And through doing, I've really learnt that there's a space that needs to be supported here, especially, prenatal and postnatal, helping with that recovery. And then when you're talking about weight loss, I like to call it feel good weight and not weight loss, because that culture of let's get that body back, that pre-baby body, it's so, I want to say toxic. It's just so unhelpful, the pressure. And then when nutrition comes in with this feel good weight, it can get really distorted. So it's really important to kind of do it properly.
Yeah. And we've had a talk about this off air, where I never talk about weight really with my members. Like, that's not why women join my membership. It's not something that I actively go out and say, hey, join my program and you'll lose weight. Like, that's just not what it's all about. It's more about feeling stronger in the body and feeling more confident and like that feel good inside out. So that's why I think what you mentioned really resonated with everything I do and I am with this podcast and everything, is because although I don't actively, that's not what my program or this podcast is about, I know it is also a concern that new mums have. And it's, any concern's a valid concern. And I can see the discussion in all the communities and it is a big topic. So it's great to be able to talk this through with you from a holistic point of view.
It's also, I think, a bit taboo to talk about it. In the 80s and the 90s, it was totally fine to talk about weight loss, to Jenny Craig or whatever, it was acceptable, but times are changing and it's not really acceptable. And often, especially in the health space, talking about weight loss, there's sometimes almost even a guilt or a shame. Like, we need to be able to enjoy our bodies. That's number one. We need to be able to be proud of our bodies and how we are feeling. If we are not in alignment, if we're not feeling right and homeostasis isn't there, and weight loss can help with that, then it does need to be discussed without shame and without feeling bad or without feeling any body negativity. So it is a really fine balance, especially just with social media today and how body positivity and weight loss is. So I can understand why you probably don't talk about it.
Yeah. But then, I was just a guest on the Kick Pregnancy podcast and we were talking about prolapse, and I was having a chat with Dr. Pat Maloney, and the biggest risk factor for prolapse is weight, our body's weight. So it is something it is really tricky, because although I don't like to discuss, and as you said, it's a bit taboo and I would hate for anyone to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, shame or guilt, for sure.
Exactly. It's something that, as I said, that's why it is exciting to chat today in a nice holistic way that's not going to go down that path.
No shame, and also no starvation and no diets. It's not helpful. It's about, feeding yourself well and getting to the weight which you feel good in, which is different for you, for me, for our neighbor. Like, everyone's different as well. So,
okay, well, let's start with that. Let's say we've had a woman who's given birth, her baby's a few months old, she's still breastfeeding, she's perhaps starting to think about some exercise, and she's been doing that, but she, like, as you say, isn't her feel-good weight range. What would be a few first steps for her?
Well, so first thing, as we said, everyone's different. And with a baby, postpartum, 12 weeks, you're still under a rock. It's still your kind of food training and, getting meals. Perhaps you still have frozen meals prepared if you've even gone down that path. So I think when the time feels right for you, I think that's the first thing, knowing when it's the right time for you. Because if you force it too much too soon, that can be hard on you. It can be hard on the family. It can be hard on the baby. So really just sitting with when that time feels right for you. For me, it was almost like after a year. I kind of just committed myself to just being in that baby world, but I didn't get to myself. And you might know that with your clients as well. You might not know, it's like that time comes where you feel that it's right to start.
This episode is brought to you by Baby Bee, Australian owned and designed prams combining quality, safety and style. Not only does Baby Bee let you try their prams at home with free returns for 9 months, yes, that's 9 months, they also offer an industry-leading 3-year warranty for total peace of mind. With thousands of 5-star reviews, around-the-clock customer care, and up to $300 of free accessories with every pram, what are you waiting for? Go visit www.babybeeonline.com and check them out for yourself. And yes, for listeners of the podcast, there is a 20% discount code. Enter FITBEE, FITBEE 20 at checkout, and T's and C's apply. Oh, I feel the whole first year, you don't think about you. It's the whole first time in your whole life, perhaps, that like everything you do before you have babies, it's all about you. We can be quite egocentric, I guess, because it's only us. Whereas suddenly that first year postpartum, it's not about us anymore. And maybe that is something we potentially need to address, but often the focus is on the baby. So it does take a few months to really come up for fresh air and think, oh, where am I at? Regroup. Yeah. What do I want?
Exactly. And you'll know that feeling as well. I think when you start to feel that you need it, because you're probably sleep deprived, you're tired, you're completely depleted, you've been drained physically, emotionally, everything from you. So often the time of that something's out of balance comes from potentially a nutrient imbalance or insufficiency. It takes so much. I mean, to grow a human, the blood, the teeth, the bones, everything, it's literally draining from you. The baby, like the mothers are just a vessel. The baby will thrive and will, the mums come out basically just a skeleton afterwards most of the time. So first thing I think is to really focus on nutrition to get your nutrient repletion. We need to make sure our stores, this is micronutrients, it's macronutrients. We need to get our stores up first, make sure we're nutritionally replete. Then we can kind of think about the next step. So that would be the first step for sure.
Okay, well, let's dive into that a little bit more. So you mentioned postnatal depletion, really common. I have done a previous episode that I'll link in this podcast, but from your point of view, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, I follow a lot of Dr. Saralak stuff, who you might know. He's Australian. He's an absolute champion in this field. It can mean a lot of different things for different people, but it's essentially on a micronutrient level. If your iron is not where it needs to be, if your vitamin D isn't where it needs to be, if your basic minerals aren't where they need to be, then you're going to be tired. It doesn't matter how much you're sleeping or coffee you're drinking, God forbid. If your iron's low, then you're not doing anything. So, I mean, you can get that tested through blood tests with your GP. You'll do that probably after birth even. So you'll kind of know. So getting that checked. But even when it comes, that's micronutrients, right? Then we can talk the macronutrients.
Before we talk macronutrients, how might we identify if we have issues with our iron or vitamin D? Like I know I'm sure I wasn't blood tested for years and years and I had iron levels, bottomed out. But how do we get tested?
Yeah.
B, how do we know when we should get tested?
When tested, yeah. Well, it can be really tricky because, in motherhood, when you're tired or stressed or your libido's low or you're overwhelmed, most people just tap you on the shoulder and say, oh, that's motherhood. You'll be right. You'll be right in 4 years, But if you know something's wrong, if you're drained and you can't, if you have postnatal depression, you might, that's often postnatal depression if you have low iron stores. If you're also low in essential fatty acids, these have shown in pregnancy, if you're low in these things, then it can tend towards having higher levels of postnatal depression. So if things just seem harder than they are, even if it is just typical mum, and I put that in air quotes, like symptoms, if things are struggling for you, if you can't sleep, if you're feeling like if your nervous system's overwhelmed, which it often is in motherhood, but if it's feeling more for you, then you need to look deeper. You don't need to struggle through all of that. I would say, and if you haven't taken a supplement, as broad blanket, prenatal, postnatal, then your stores are definitely going to be low. And if you haven't taken your supplement continuing through in your breastfeeding or postnatal, then you're likely going to be low. You're going to be low and the baby might also be low. For example, with iodine, let's say as an example, if we're low in iodine, the baby will be low in iodine, and iodine increases IQ in the baby. So there's certain nutrients that just also need to be had in the body. So if you're feeling drained, low libido, if you're feeling like a nervous wreck, let's just say, sleep is poor, you're losing a lot of weight even, or, you're keeping it everything's feeling so drained, then reach out to your healthcare professional and just say, hey, I don't feel things are right. Can I just get a blood test? That's the first place to start.
Love that.
But even often then some of the doctors would also be like, yeah, okay, this is good, that's fine. But it's definitely the first place to start. Yeah.
Okay. And then you were about to go into, so that's all the micronutrients. Now let's talk about the macro side of things.
Well, I feel that the macros are kind of, and when I say macros, I just mean like nutrition 101, carbs, fats, and proteins. And this is kind of where you can really go and help with your diet. You can also help with nutrients in your diet for sure. Red meat is probably the easiest way, for example, to get iron. We know vitamin D comes from the sun. You can also supplement with these things, and also with iodine and choline and vitamin C and zinc. You can get that from your food. Absolutely. You need a nice variety of food to be able to get it. With our macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats, this is when we kind of just throw a meal together. What does that look like? And how can we put a meal together so we're supporting ourselves, making sure that we have our energy levels that are just sustained throughout the day so they're not crashing, after breakfast, crashing after lunch.
And here comes the issue, being the devil's advocate. You've got a busy mum whose baby might be unsettled or not sleeping well.
Yeah.
Hey, let's just knock up a healthy meal. It's got all the macronutrients.
Macronutrients, yeah, absolutely.
How do we
Taking
do
the
that?
hard out of healthy. Yeah, it doesn't have to be hard. I think, and I don't want to say, because it sometimes also sounds overwhelming, planning has to be part of it, but it doesn't. I mean, no one can really see me right now, but I'm holding my hands up, 2 hands together. Let's just say that's a plate. If you put your 2 palms in front of you, one hand can be a variety of vegetable, colorful vegetables or fruits, whatever that is for you. Maybe you have, I don't know, greens, vegetables, a salad, maybe it's a pumpkin, maybe it's root vegetables, maybe whatever it is, or maybe it's some fruit. And then we've got a palm size of protein. So what can that be? That can be leftover chicken from last night's dinner. That can be an egg. That can be a tofu.
Tuna.
Yeah, exactly. A tin of tuna. Yeah, so stuff like that. And then you can have grains as well, which is then your top half of your fingers up the top. So that could be bread, that could be pasta. But having that in proportion, that's going to help make that easier. And a snack is just a mini meal. A snack is just should be seen as a small meal, not a bag of chips or a muffin, but something which is like a fully whole meal, just in a smaller size. And you can also grab those. Yeah. Does that make it easier though? Does that make it easier for people to think?
Well, let's have some practical examples.
Yeah.
What are some pantry staples? Like, let's say mum's hungry, wants to knock up something really healthy in a minute.
Yeah.
What have you got?
So let's say you wake up, that can be 2 eggs and some mushrooms in an omelette. It could also be an overnight oats with yogurt and some fruit on top that you can prepare the night before. And then lunch, or like a snack rolls around. You could have carrots, you could have like vegetable sticks and a tub of hummus, which you can also pre-buy. You could have little crackers with cottage cheese, tomato on there. That's again, you've got your vegetables, you've got your protein, and you have a little, cracker to kind of sustain you as well. And then lunch, you said tuna in a can. That's like the easiest go-to, isn't it? I'm a little bit...
4 bean mix in a can.
4 bean mix in a can, yeah. And this is also 4 bean mix, yeah. If you're a vegetarian or vegan, the tofus, the tempehs, beans as well. Anything, I want to say anything left over, but you can also kind of bring that in too. If you have a leftover lasagna, then you can just put some salad on the side, a salad, a vegetable out of a bag with a nice dressing. Yeah.
Packed vegetables, they're my go-to as a parent.
Yeah. And I mean,
pre-packed.
Yeah. Or frozen as well. Frozen actually nutritionally, the food is picked on the farm and frozen there and then. So from a nutritional point of view, frozen food's also very nutrient dense.
They do go soggy though, don't they?
The frozen
Yeah.
things. Well, I mean, my midweek go-to that my kids also like, I just get frozen broccoli, peas, spinach, put it, in a pan with some coconut milk or stock, whiz it, soup, bread, dip, done,
Wait.
What was that? So I've got...
Yeah, whiz it up.
Yeah, so maybe fry some onions. I put the frozen broccoli, frozen spinach, frozen peas in. The kids aren't too fond of a coconut milk, so sometimes I'll use a broth and I'll put it in. I'll cook it up for however long it takes to get soft, and then I blend it.
Does that taste nice, like a soup?
Yeah. I mean, you can also put like different spices that you like. Yeah, I mean, you can, you use your spices for your flavors as well. But it's just very easy. It doesn't have to be hard. That's the thing, I guess.
Yeah.
It can be very easy. And I think that's the thing. It's like knowing what to go to. I think sometimes the idea of eating healthy can be really overwhelming because it's like, I need to be eating salad. And it's not like that. And you know what? And this comes back to getting to your feel-good weight and nutrition as well. If you just eat a toasted sandwich, that's also fine. That's also fine. We need to have a good relationship with food. When we think food is healthy or unhealthy, this puts us into a really hard spot, because if you're not eating healthy, then you often think that, I'm not doing good enough. I'm eating bad. That's not good for me. I'm unhealthy. And that's not often the way. We need to be able to enjoy all food. And if a toasted sandwich, whatever, or I don't know, a bag of chips or a tub of ice cream for dinner, if that's what you manage to do, you also need to give yourself grace. That's fine. And then, the next time you eat a meal, see how you can kind of put it together to be healthy. I'm also I work a lot with this, like trying to get out of diet culture as well. That's often a lot to do to segue into the feel good weight. That's often a lot with that, because there's a lot of with the weight, holding on, or even trying to get to a feel good weight. A lot of women will starve themselves. They will also they'll restrict themselves highly because they want to lose weight, so they kind of take out all the things that they love, but that's not sustainable. And if they lose the weight short term, they're still going to love their ice cream, and then they'll end up gaining it again. So it's about finding that balance, and not saying foods are good or bad. And if you feel like a food, also enjoying that food, but knowing, okay, when can I then bring foods in that are going to also nourish myself and potentially a baby as well.
So what I'm hearing between the lines is you're a big fan of slow or gradual weight loss perhaps, but a sustainable diet that involves, eating the foods you like too, but something that's a bit more sustainable versus the crash diet culture.
Oh my God, 100%. 100%.
Yeah,
And it comes back to that eating healthy, that what you said, I'm busy, I need to eat healthy. That doesn't need to be difficult. And don't put the pressure on yourself of having to always be healthy and eating healthy, because it's not fun and it's not sustainable.
It's the same as with exercise. It's the exact same, I guess, concept. Rather than thinking, okay, for the next 6 weeks, I'm going to join a gym and go every single day and, get really fit. Yeah. I would much prefer if someone did something, 2-3 times a week, sustainable, put in those building blocks, create that habit. It's all about creating it like that, little habit and those stepping stones, because that over the course of the year, that consistent exercise pays dividends. And that's where all my mums who end up, back running and really happy with their fitness goals, they haven't done anything crazy or out there. They've literally just come along to 2 Pilates classes a week, gone for a couple of walks a week.
It's exactly. And I think you need to see it as an infinite game. It's not after 6 weeks, you're going to feel this way and that's it. Check, health done or fitness done. That would be a very finite way of thinking. That's why diets also don't work. You go on a diet, you finish it, and then habits get you back to where you are or where you were. So when you start to shift your perspective and see it as just an infinite game that keeps going, then you see it as something that needs to happen on a consistent basis all the time. Yeah. So.
And what are your thoughts about, rather than like as a mum dieting and how her children as they grow up, like what sort of impact would that have on children,
absolutely.
seeing their mum trying to go through all these diets and losing weight?
Yeah.
Have you got any thoughts around that?
Massive intergenerational diet culture. I think I heard it called somewhere. Yeah, I mean, we pass it on to the kids, right? And if you've been in hardcore diet culture, if you've grown up also watching your mum or, your parents dieting, you might have also been brought up on that. And you might not know any difference. And then you just bring it onto your kids. Of course, as parents, we are the nutritional gatekeepers for our children. Our habits come onto our children. We say stuff, finish your plate. You have to eat everything that's on your plate. Or you can't have dessert until you finish your meal. Stuff like this. This is what we've been brought up with. And we're putting that straight into our kids.
I know. And I've spoken to so many on this podcast and about this. Alana, I would like your advice. What do I do with my children who, it's just one child, she won't even try dinner on occasions. Usually they're all pretty good eaters. But what happens on those occasions where she's like, nah, don't like this. Yeah. Can I have ice? And then she takes herself to the freezer. They can now get their own ice creams out, proceeds to unwrap it.
How old is she?
There's no more.
How old is she?
She's 6.
She's 6. She's the oldest or the middle or the youngest?
She's the youngest.
She's the
youngest.
So
the youngest is always.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, one, right? Okay. Yeah, so she...
Hope she's not listening.
Not yet anyway, in 10 years. Yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, I think there also needs, kids at that age as well, they still work well with rules. A child until they're 5 years old actually knows how to intuitively eat. They know what they want. So 6, I mean, they're already learning the developmental habits of how to eat, but studies have shown that until a child is around 5, they know what they feel like. When ice cream gets involved, it's a bit hard because there's sugar, and sugar's obviously, they're not going for the citrus foods because maybe their immune system's low and they need vitamin C, or they're not going for the fatty food, or they're not going for things, maybe they're growing and they need that extra energy, so they're taking this. If it's every night ice cream, then that's something different. But you can put food on the table. This is what's for dinner. Ice cream's not for dinner. Or if it is just about the ice cream, you could perhaps try something crazy. Some nutritionists or dietitians do this, and I did incorporate it with my children for a while, and I have to say it has helped. You can get a small scoop of ice cream. This is going to sound crazy. Put it in a bowl. Put it on the plate with dinner. Just a small bit. That doesn't need to be a lot. She's going to eat that ice cream, that little bit of ice cream first, and then this is what's for dinner. So you've got whatever you have as your main meal for dinner, and if you have dessert after dinner, you can just give it to them before or with. And a small portion. It doesn't need to be a whole entire wrapped thing on a stick, just maybe a little, if you have a small tub, just a small spoon out. So then she has that freedom, because I think children also, they don't have a lot of control in their life. They can close their mouth and they have this control over their parents that they don't get anywhere else in their life. And all they have to do is push their plate back and say no. And then mum's eyes get fire in them, I spent time cooking this meal. What? No, we're not having ice cream.
I spent an hour cooking this.
Exactly. So there are different ways you can try. You can, this is what's for dinner. You can pick what you want. And if it's always the ice cream that needs to be had, whether that's from power struggles or whether that's from I just want ice cream because my tonsils are sore, whatever the reason is, you can put it on the plate and serve it with and be like, that's the ice cream. That's all we're having. We're not having seconds. And this is what else is for dinner. And let them choose, give them the power.
So Alana, what you just mentioned, you're not the first person. I think I interviewed Dr. Kyla. I'll try to remember to put that link in the show notes too. She suggested the exact same thing. Put dessert on the plate with the dinner. And I can do that with lunch, for snacks all together, but for dinner I just can't.
It's like a holy space.
Yeah, which that's probably something I need to work on. But I say just dessert. Ice cream is just for Friday, Saturday, like weekends.
Yeah. And if
Is that
that's
all right?
if that's the rule in your family, that's totally fine. Like that's your family rules, you know? And just because Jane down the road does it differently, well, sorry, like this is our family. And that's okay to have rules. Like we also, kids need boundaries as well. And the thing is if it's like, this is what's for dinner, the kitchen's closed, we're going to have ice cream tomorrow night. Tonight's Friday, we're having ice cream tonight, let's say it's a Monday, we're having ice cream on Friday night. This is going to be exciting. We're going to have sprinkles. What flavor do you want? I'm so looking forward to it. But this is what's for dinner tonight. Take what you want, pick out of it what you want. And if they're hungry, they're going to eat. Maybe they got home late and already got into the ice cream before you saw it, and they just want more, so yeah.
Anyway, we're digressing. We're talking about mum and here we are on to the kids again.
Yeah, no, but it's also a mother, anyone who has a child is going to have to go through that sooner or later. It's all, I think, yeah, you're feeding a child when you're prenatal, you're feeding a child when you're postnatal, and then you're teaching them to feed themselves. So it's a very big space of you having to take responsibility for someone's nutrition.
And it happens really quickly. It is not very long until they can drag a chair over to the pantry and help themselves to whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a whole new ballgame.
It is. And also coming from the field of nutrition, I had to learn that firsthand. I was like, I know how to eat. My kids will just, if I model it, they'll do it. But, just because I wear a certain style of clothes, they don't see me and think, hey, Mom, that's a great style. They go and do their own thing anyway. It's the same with nutrition. And maybe, fitness might be different because you're really involving them in it, if you're an active family. But just because you eat a certain way doesn't mean your children are also going to follow what you eat. So, yeah, you need to also, coming back to diets, just being aware of how you do things and what we're kind of also putting onto our children, because they will carry habits. We've carried habits from our parents, which we're then putting along as well. And it can be tricky.
I find it so special. Like, it was school holidays recently and went out for dinner with another mum and the kids, and afterwards there was this beautiful gelati shop and I was just really excited to go and get a yummy ice cream with them and have one with them. And then the other mum, she was like, oh no, I can't, I'm on a diet. And I just felt so bad for her because, it's such a beautiful experience with the kids and, with another family. And I was like, I didn't obviously say anything, but yeah.
Yes, that's a massive one. That also comes back down to calling foods good or bad, putting yourself on a diet. Like after that diet, then what? Is she, do they just kind of keep eating ice cream? You need to be able to enjoy that ice cream. That, you need to also think every time when we eat something or when we do anything, we have positive and negative outcomes. And that positive of enjoying a family time together, friends, afternoon ice cream, that's such a positive effect that impacts everyone versus maybe the negative effect which you might get for whatever reason on a diet. If she's wanting to lose weight, one ice cream isn't going to ruin that. It's not going to ruin that. Maybe if you're on a diet because you have acne and the milk is causing the acne, then okay, there's certain foods that might trigger it. But if it's just for getting for losing weight, then we can't restrict. We know as adults and also with children, restriction only causes them to want that food more. So we need to be able to enjoy things and have that balance. And that's that thing about getting to your feel good weight. You can change how much you have on what you're eating. So if we go back to that analogy of my hands together, vegetables, proteins, carbs, we know that reducing, let's say, starchy vegetables, that's potatoes and pumpkins, and if we're reducing legumes and then our grains, if we're reducing those within our week, that will typically lead to weight loss. If we add more of those foods in, we will get weight gain and build strength. So you can manage your your macronutrients to kind of help with that. But it's finding that balance and not fully restricting and not going completely ketogenic, where you don't eat any carbs, because if you do that for a long time and then go back to eating, quote, normal, you're just going to put that weight back on. So you need to be able to find that balance. and find what's good for you. And often it's good to work with someone for that as well, because otherwise you go through these phases of, I'm not allowed to do that. This isn't good. Am I in a diet? Am I not in a diet? What's balance?
Okay, well, let's take it back to this mum that we mentioned who's a few months postpartum and she's wanting to get to a feel good weight. And you mentioned let's first of all focus on the micro and macros. Yep.
Vitamins and minerals, and then, proteins and carbs. Yep.
And then what would be the next?
For them to get to their feel good weight, or to take their health, to get into their health.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this, and it's just going to sound very simple. Although not very simple. It's harder to do than it actually is. So make sure that you're nutritionally replete. That can be taking a supplement. That can be eating a variety of food, supporting yourself, essential fatty acids, and just like a multivitamin can kind of do that. If you're really deficient, then that's just going to get you up to par. And then you kind of want to thrive. You don't want to survive. You actually want to really feel well. And then, yes, for this mom, when the time comes, it depends. Like, where is she at? When I had my first child, Theodore sucked the life out of me. I felt like I was skin and bones. Like, I needed to really actually put on weight afterwards. And so, as I said, I ate a lot of like foods that would help me build that strength back up. But maybe there's a mother who also wants to, and I say this very loosely because you're not going to ever get back to your pre-body baby, right? Body baby. You're not going to get back to that body. We've changed. Our bodies have changed in so many ways, and we need to find our own path now in motherhood and who we are in our body. And so once this mum kind of knows that she has, I guess, covered all those micronutrients, then yes, if she wants to lose weight, then there are ways to kind of shift the nutrition to be able to lose weight. If she wants to gain weight, then she also needs to shift that. But when we think about nutrition, and this goes back to what we said before, it can't just be these strict rules of, I have to eat this way and this is going to get me there, and then after that I'll be fine. We need to find a way to bring it into our lifestyle. We need to find a way to change habits to be able to know if our body is hungry. Like, what is our body asking for? You know what I mean? And this is the thing about following diets as well, as if you are on a strict diet and your body's saying it's really hungry for something, well, what does that mean? And how do we navigate around that? So it's also, I guess, tuning in with yourself, knowing what your body needs, knowing what it's asking for, and then knowing how to feed it as well. And again, that sounds, I could go like a lot deeper into this, but it's like, it sounds very easy. And I think in essence it is easy, but the day-to-day, when you're struggling with a small child and you've got school pickups and everything else that you have to do, like it does get really difficult. And so, yes, I mean.
And I guess that's where that one-on-one support would be really helpful. If you were seeing someone for this sort of situation, how many sessions might you need to have with them? Or is that like a piece of string?
Yeah, it depends. And it depends what they struggle with the most sometimes. And because it also, again, telling someone or like working through someone who's been strictly on diets, saying, hey, it's okay. Like, you don't have to be on a diet and you can have ice cream for dinner if you want, and enjoy it, and know the next morning that you're going to have something different that's going to support your body. Like, that can be really difficult. So it does depend, actually. Yeah, sometimes I work with people like for 12 weeks. I've also worked with people for 6 months sometimes, just to have that transformational change of like accountability. But 6 months does get very long as well, working with someone one-on-one. So sometimes doing it more intense, the motivation's there, and then to kind of keep it going. But yeah, it is a piece of string because it is different. And I think it's also sometimes a whole entire mindset shift of wanting to also make the change and incorporate it as well.
And that's a whole other topic, isn't it?
Yeah. It is massive in and of itself too. Yeah.
It's not an easy, not a simple topic or situation. Okay, so to start to wrap this up, is there anything we haven't spoken about that you think is really important for mums who might be listening?
I think we've touched on lightly on like a lot of different topics, which each of them could like have a lot of roots that can go deep down. I think what I'd like mums to know is to give themselves grace, especially when it comes with food, know how to nourish themselves, what that means for them, and like making that easy in their life, because it doesn't have to be hard. Knowing it doesn't have to be hard. You can eat well, you can eat all foods and still be healthy. And if you're wanting to kind of go deeper in there, then find someone that speaks to you, find someone who speaks your language in regards to this, and seek help then, and go further if you want to be supported more. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, on that note, how can women find you?
All the places. No, I'm not even on all the places. Yeah, I have a podcast as well, the Health After 30 podcast. Talk about it's a lot about, once women have got to 30 and we've kind of realized, we need to sustain health long term, how we can do that holistically, especially in motherhood, with nutrition. Instagram, and then alanabonnemann.com is my website where people can find me.
And I'll have all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I really appreciate you getting up early where you're living in Germany.
Yeah, time difference.
Yeah, so
Kath, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for having me as well.
Oh, absolute pleasure. We'll chat to you soon.
Bye.
And before I sign off, remember my team and I will be putting together the show notes for this episode with all the links that I mentioned, including the postpartum depletion and Dr. Kyla's one where we discuss nutrition for children at fitnessmama.com/podcast. And as I mentioned earlier, I do invite you to come and give us a rating and review if you enjoy this podcast. It will really help this podcast get found by other mums to help support them along their journey too. So that's it, ladies. Have a fabulous day, and I look forward to you joining me next week for another episode of the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast. Thanks for listening to the Fitness Mama podcast, brought to you by the Fitness Mama freebies found at www.fitnessmama.com/free. So please take a few seconds to leave a review, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and be sure to take a screenshot of this podcast, upload it to your social media, and tag me at Fitness Mama so I can give you a shout out too. Until next time, remember, an active pregnancy, confident childbirth, and strong postnatal recovery is something that you deserve. Remember our disclaimer: materials and contents in this podcast are intended as general information only and shouldn't substitute any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I'll see you soon.